Hey everyone, so in this video we are going to work more on the harvesting aspect of the game. So first what we're going to do, we're going to re-enable the mouse down. So I mentioned that by installing the new APIs in the last video, it disables the old APIs, but what you can do, you can actually have them both running in tandem. So we can keep the simplified gamepad controls that we used, but we can use the simplified mouse code that we originally used with the original APIs, the original input system. So the way you do that is if you go to Edit and you go to Project Settings, you have several categories here. If you choose Player, and then you expand out the Other Settings section here, go down to Optimization, and just above that you'll see Active Input Handling. When you install the new new APIs, the new input system, it changes this setting to that. If you instead set this to both, then it will still accept the on mouse down as well as the gamepad input. So you'd change it to both, it will restart, and then your mouse down will start working again. Okay, so with that out of the way, oh, and by the way, one of the reasons why I decided to do that is they announced that there was no timeline for deprecating, for getting rid of the old input system. So going forward for who knows how long, you should be just fine with this. So what we're going to do now, when you click on an object, we're going to have a particle system instantiate. We're going to have a particle system spawn because right now you click on something and nothing happens. You click on it a couple more times and it disappears and you get the resource. So what we want to do is we want to have a particle system appear, so you're given that visual confirmation to the user that yes, indeed, they've clicked on something and that they are harvesting it. So let's go to game object. Let's go to effects. Let's go to particle system. And what we're going to do with this, let's actually move this to like 0, 0, 0. Not that it really matters because we're going to change its position. But when you create a particle system, by default, the particle is a 2D image that is facing the camera. So even if you rotate around this, the particle keeps facing you. The only exception is if you change rotation, which we actually will in a few moments. So first, we don't want a particle system. This would be good for like dust and that kind of thing, but we really want to see like chunks of rock flying off, okay? So the way we do that is with the particle system in the inspector, we're going to come down here to renderer. We're going to expand that out. For render mode, let's change this to mesh. And now you can see it's a cube with like that 2D image, the circle, as the material. So for the mesh under that, this new field opens up. We're going to actually change this, and you can use any mesh that's in your scene. We're going to use the rock. You'd probably want to make something that looks like a splinter or whatever. We'll change it to that rock. So that's just the mesh. That's not the texture. We need to add a texture to it. We need to add a material, I should say. So click on material and we'll just use default material. Again, you could use a different material, something that makes this look more stylized, but you're going to shrink the size of this, so I won't go too crazy with the material. Okay, so you've changed the 2D image to a 3D mesh, but it looks terrible for a lot of reasons. So for one thing, the size. Let's change the size. So start size, let's make this like 0.12. And some of this is kind of a guesswork. Some of it I already tested off camera. But when it comes to making a particle system, it is absolutely like sculpting. And I'm going to try not to go down the rabbit hole because it's arbitrary. What you feel looks right in the context of your game is right. You're the one who's created the game. You're the one who's deciding what you believe the visuals should be. Okay. So we're changing the start size. Next, we're going to add gravity. So right here, gravity modifier, it's 0. So let's change it to like 1.3. And now you can see it's kind of like barely bubbling up and then dropping. You may want that for some reason. Maybe this is coming, maybe this is the top of the fountain and you want it to like drip down along the side or something. Who knows? But that's not really what we want. We definitely want this to go up into the air. So that means we need to add more velocity. So what we're going to do is start speed rather than 5. Let's try like 15. And that's okay. It probably doesn't look right because, again, we're not in the context of the world. It's by itself. And also, it's looping. and it's lasting 5 seconds, which it won't need to. Like lasting like 1.5 will probably be 2. 2 looks good. Okay, so we've added a few things. We've done a few things to this. Now let's increase the rate because the emission rate is too low. It's 10. Let's make this like 65. Again, you're going to decide what looks right in the context of your game. Shape, it defaults to a cone. You can change the base, okay? And then you can change the angle. So that's why it's going out like a mushroom like this. So if we had changed the angle to 0, it basically comes back down in place, all right? So 25 is too much because that's just going to like go all over the place. Let's make this like, say, 14. And the radius we can make slightly bigger. So let's make that like 1.2. But then let's make the angle a little bit smaller to offset that. Let's make that like 13. Again, if you change one setting, you might find you have to change another setting because of some unintended consequence. Okay, so we changed the radius, we changed the angle, we changed the lifetime, we changed the start speed, we changed the start size, we changed the what is being instantiated. It's no longer a 2D image, it's a 3D. Because it's so small, you can't really see here. But right now, these are not rotating. They're just going up in the air and then coming down. So if you want this to be debris, you really want it rotating around. You want to see more chaos. So that's rotation over lifetime. And then this, you can already see it's moving a little bit because it defaults to 45. You can do like 180. The bigger this number, the more it's rotating. A lot of these are per second, so I'm not sure if that's 180 degrees per second, but it's not just 180 degrees, period. That it's per a certain unit of time. And now you can definitely see like the bottom. So you can see that it's definitely rotating now. Okay, so we have rotation over lifetime. Now, depending on how far this goes, this might actually drop through the ground and you're fine with that. But if you want this to like shrink so its disappearance isn't so obvious, you could also do size over lifetime. Click here, click on this one here, the third one, because it starts at 1. And then if you right click and choose add key, what you can do is this. And so you can see it kind of disappears if you want that effect. Okay, so that should about give us what we want. We're going to take this, we're going to rename it debris. We're going to take that, going to drag that into the asset area, which turns it into a prefab. Can delete that. Any change we make to this prefab will cascade into any instance of the prefab. So every time we spawn the prefab, any change we've made to it will be in that new spawn. So as you can see, I have a miscellaneous FX script here. So go ahead and create that. So that's right click, create C#. And what we're going to do is we'll use this throughout the project to do, as the name would suggest, miscellaneous things that really don't fit into any other category. So go ahead and click on your particle system, put miscellaneous FX on it, open it up. And as you can see, there's one thing in the start section, we're saying destroy the object that this is attached to. So it's attached to the particle system, destroyed after 1.3 seconds. So this part is optional when you're using the destroy command. However, we don't want it to destroy immediately. As we said, we want it to run for a little bit over 1 second. So 1.3 seconds. If you wanted to run a little bit longer, a little bit less, that's what you would do. So we want the game object to be destroyed after it spawns, and we want to wait 1.3 seconds. So that destroys the game object, in this case, the debris prefab. Now what we want to do, we want to go to our block con script. So this script, again, is attached to our blocks, okay? What we're going to do, we're going to add this. We're adding a new variable. So public transform, and we're going to call it debris obj. So what you would do if you're going to change any aspect of the particle system itself, like you want to change its emission rate, if you're trying to do that via code, via the script, then you'd probably do public particle system, and then you could change aspects. We're not. We've already set it to the way we want it, so I'm just doing public transform. But if you decide you want to be able to change the particle system, some element of it while it's running through the attached script, the miscellaneous FX script, then you do public particle system. That way you'd have access to those aspects of it. But we're just going to have it spawn. So public transform debris obj. Here's the on mouse down that we've re-enabled. Here's the command that says instantiate the new block. Well, if you think about the flow, you're going to click on the block, you instantiate the new block. That means that's also when you want the debris to instantiate it because you've destroyed the previous block. So that's right where you're going to put this instantiate. There's one major difference to it. As I've said, instantiate has three arguments: what is being instantiated, where it's being instantiated, and its rotation. Well, this one we're going to break down to its three vectors, x, y, and z. Because as I mentioned, the problem with using Magic of Voxel is the origin is like 1.5 Unity units below it, and like right along the edge for some bizarre reason. And while it's great that the guy who created it, he's worked on it for years. It's great that he did that for free. Well, I think you could make donations to him, but the program itself is for free. But the problem is that's a really terrible place to put the origin. So I'm not trying to run him down. He did great, making this application free to everyone, but it's a really terrible place for the origin. And so one way around this is that if you could always child the object to a parent and have the parent have a more normal value for the origin, or we're going to do what we did here, and that is we're just going to adjust the transform position. So we're going to bust this out into its three vectors. So as you can see, rather than just saying transform position, you can see a similar verbiage, transform dot position x, and then we adjust it. We're using minus 0.75f. You have to put in an f if you're using a decimal. Comma, transform position dot y. Again, we said that the origin is below it, so we need to raise it up. Transform dot position dot z minus 3/4, so minus 0.75f. If you are not using Magic of Voxel and your object has an origin that's either in the center of the block or the bottom center of the block, then you won't have to change X and Z. This is only because, as I said, Magic of Voxel puts the origin along the edge and below the object for some inexplicable reason. So that's why we're busting this out into its three vectors. So it might look messy, but again, if you look at the syntax, it's very, very similar. It's just rather than saying use this vector 3, you're breaking it down into its individual three vectors. So what's being instantiated? The debris object, which we just declared here. Where? Well, relative to the object this is attached to. And then the rotation, use the debris object's own rotation. Okay, so that's the block con script, and we did the miscellaneous FX script. So let's run it like that. We actually have to do one more thing though. So if you click on your blocks, all four of them, you'll see they all have debris object. Now you can't always do this because if you're trying to link a different object, you could have a problem. But since we want to link exactly the same prefab, you can just select all four and then drag and drop the prefab there. And I think that should do it. So we click, and there you go. You got debris flying out. It looks okay. It looks a little bit kind of floaty, so you might want to both increase the speed and the gravity. And it looks like it kind of goes high up in the air too. So you would decide for yourself how you want to make this look better. I've shown you what tools, what settings will really do that, but now you've added debris. And you can do this for the rocks as well. It won't work right now because the block is controlled by block con. The rock is controlled by harvest. So what we're going to do We go to the harvest script, and we're going to actually take this same thing, and we're just going to copy and paste this in harvest. So in harvest, actually that's right, I already put it here as remark statements. We don't have to paste it. So same thing, public transform debris. And here's the mouse down where you're clicking on the object. So this is where you would instantiate it. So same idea as BlockCon. It's in the mouse down. You're clicking on the object. Same thing. In Harvest, you're clicking on the object. And the only change I'm going to make here is since this object is not as tall, you obviously don't have to push it up as high into the air. Did I save that? Yes, I did. And I didn't go through it because we already did. It's rinse and repeat. It's the same thing. So I'm not going to go through the individual details. So now if we click on, actually, it won't work. Sorry, because I did not. Where's our rock? I didn't actually drag and drop it onto here. Debris. There we go. There you go. So now you got debris coming out of your rock. Again, it doesn't look quite right as far as the positioning, so you're going to have to mess around with the X and the Z depending on what you use to make your object. But now, just like that, you've added this, pretty distinct visual to your game. And since we didn't attach it to the tree, that won't work yet. However, the coding has been done because harvest is attached to this and harvest attached to this. So what you can do is rather than using this debris object, okay, you could create a different debris object, drag and drop it here, okay, and then what will happen is without changing any of the code, it will instantiate a different debris object for the tree. So you could do something that maybe looks more like splinters. Actually, you probably could even use the pine tree prefab. But anyway, so yeah, you could just like Control D to make a duplicate. So you do Control D. So now you have a duplicate. Maybe call it splinters or something. Come down to the render section. We already have the mesh. We would choose a different one. So we choose this. And then we could use the same material. And then, sorry, did I do that to the wrong one? My apologies, I did that to the wrong one. So what we want to do, go back. So debris will be that. This is the one I wanted. So splinter, that is the one that I wanted to do. Take the tree shape. Okay. As you can see, kind of looks like splinters. It's actually little mini trees, so you definitely would want to use something different, but I'm just showing how you could create you can use a different mesh. And so what we can do is now that we're using, let's see, so that's debris, that's right. So we'll do splinters, and maybe we have it rotate over time more so it's not quite so obvious. So we have it rotate over lifetime, maybe 360, so it's spinning really more crazily. And we'll make it slightly smaller, maybe a start size of 0.1. And then, as I said, for the tree, you take splinters and you put it as the debris object. See, now you got little splinters coming out. Doesn't really look great actually, because I used the tree. So you could just use something else. So like you could use, say, game object, 3D object. Let's make a cylinder. And let's put that into as a prefab. And we'll go back to splinters. And we'll go back to this. And now we'll choose the cylinder. See if that looks better. Yeah, that looks better, just changing it. So of course you want to give it a color, make it like green, that kind of thing. And again, devil's in the details, so it probably looks a little wonky, but I'm just here to show you how to do it. It takes a lot of time and effort to get it look just right. But that should do it for this video. So we've re-enabled the on mouse down, and now we have added particle systems for when you click on the various objects. So now it's just an issue of anything that has the harvest script. You simply attach the corresponding particle system. Maybe you're going to come up with different ones. And the blocks already have what they need. So that should about do it. If you have any questions, just let me know. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. Let me know if there's any other features you'd want to see. And please enjoy the rest of your day.